For those of you who've been here before, we try to make this as conversational as we possibly can. So as we go along, if you have questions or thoughts or anything that you want to share, please just let us know and jump in and address that and chat about it. So I actually was sitting here thinking of how long I have known Mitch, I guess. How long have you been with?
So 17 years. So, yeah,
17,
my first year was the year the 2400 challenge
Yeah,
kicked in.
Right.
That was Buster's first year.
yeah,
And,
that's right.
and
Yeah,
I
okay.
started to meet you and some of the other folks at that time.
So we've been very fortunate, and we're fortunate as a community to have an education system that invests in its leaders, and grows its leaders. And Mitch is certainly a great example of that. So what I'm going to do is, Mitch, I would just ask you if you will kick us off
Yeah.
by telling us the Mitch story.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll start off if I can by asking a question. This lady in the audience didn't say her last name.
Oh, yeah, that was.
She just sort of glossed right over that. Nash,
Yeah,
do you know the last name?
Young.
Okay. So those of you that saw me kiss her when she came in, I'm not Richard Dawson from the Family Feud. That's my wife over there. So anyway. So no, so I'll try to give the brief version of this, but this is my 17th year in Forsyth County. And with Forsyth County School System, I was part of the staff that opened West Forsyth when that was a brand new high school. Prior to that, I spent 7 years in Gwinnett County as a teacher there. Prior to that, I coached college basketball for about 4 years, I guess. St. Francis College of PA. I didn't think anybody in the world would know that. And Frank comes in and said, "When were you at St. Francis?" So it wasn't when Frank played there. It was a couple years after that. But and I graduated from Florida State University. Was a manager with the basketball team there, and I then a grad assistant coach. And that sort of started me down this path to coaching college basketball. When we decided to start a family, that wasn't really the lifestyle for that, so we relocated to Atlanta, and that's when I started my teaching career full bore. That was in 2000, so it's hard to believe that was 24 years ago already. But that path led me to Forsyth County, and the attraction for us to Forsyth County, our children were, I guess they were 4 and 6 maybe at the time, 4 and 7 when we moved up here, and quite frankly, it was the schools. It was the safety factor. I think about today, I'm on the sales pitch side of this, but back then, as a recipient of that, it's about all the things we talk about. It was the schools, it was the parks and rec and all the opportunities you had for your kids there, and it was the safety factor. And so we came up and took advantage of that, and have loved every year that we've been there. I don't think we were in any one house more than 3 or 4 years. And so 17 years here and 17 years in the same home. In my time here, I started as a teacher at West. A guy named Richard Gill was the principal at the time, and he kind of pulled me into the admin side of things. And Lambert opened, became an assistant principal there for 3 years, back to West for 1 year, and then was given the opportunity to be the principal at Forsyth Central. And those 7 years, I would just tell you, probably the most incredibly rewarding 7 years of my life were the 7 years I spent as principal there. And we had some great success. Central was one of those places that my predecessor, Rudy Hampton, had done such an incredible job of laying the foundation at that school. Of course, he took over after the uber popular Kenny Fox. But when Rudy took over, 2008, 2009 recession hit, and that was really a tough time to be a principal anywhere, but particularly at Central, because the population was a little bit more transient. It was the oldest school. And so it just, when you had West popping open and Lambert popping open, Central just sort of got kind of left behind. So when I got there, one of the first meetings I had, Carter won't remember this, but I met with Carter and another bank executive and a real estate developer who I got an appointment in their office, and they slapped down in front of me. They congratulated me on the job and said, "Okay, what are you going to do about this?" And they showed me the land that was for sale that they couldn't sell in the Central area to developers because of the reputation of the school. And what are you going to do about that? So I shared my vision. They wished me luck, offered their support, and we got a lot of support from the community. And when I got in there, realized the school that it's like buying a home that has great bones. the bones of Central were incredible. And the family feel and the community connection was great. It just needed a little bit of rebranding and a little bit of love and a little bit of celebration of the good that was going on to try to get some momentum. And when we got there, I think the year before we got there, our grad rate was 82%. And my last year when we left there was 96. And that's probably why it's not about that one number. That number represents a lot of support for English language learners, a lot of support for students with disabilities, but it also represented a lot of kids that were sort of in that unspoken middle that hadn't been pushed. And so I'm as proud as I am of those graduation rates. We nearly doubled the number of kids taking AP courses and challenging themselves. And I'm equally as proud of that. So in the STEM Academy, we got a lot of accolades for that. We went on to replicate the STEM Academy with the Humanities Academy and the county's first film school. And so a lot of good things there. And so those things added up that Jeff gave me the opportunity. Jeff Bearden gave me the opportunity to come be his deputy when Solomon retired. And those of you that know Joey Perkle, I was following King Solomon, the wisest man in the county. And
Class of 1980.
there you go.
Same as me.
There you go. Yeah. So I got a chance to go in, and for the last 3 years, I got a chance to learn at the feet of one of the most prolific superintendents in the country, really. I mean, we don't think of that, but when in the middle of the pandemic, aside from all politics, when they had to reopen America, brainstorming and people from all over the country come together at the White House, the one public school superintendent was Jeff Bearden. And he was at the table representing not just our county, but schools across the country. So the chance to be able to go and learn from him for 3 years has just been tremendous. I said that was going to be a short story.
No, that's great.
So-
That's perfect. We hit on something that, system has been known for a long, in fact, we were just talking about Candy Norton a moment ago, the former head of HR for the school system. But the school system has been known for a long time for identifying great talent, growing talent, and so you've been on both sides of that.
Absolutely.
And of course, in an environment where it's always challenging to find great educators, keep great educators. Everybody who's been here before, I say this at every meeting, everybody in this room likely has a problem finding great talent and keeping great talent. It's true across the country and increasingly around the world. So when you look at that aspect of leadership and your philosophy about that and your approach to that, what does that look like? I mean, at the high level, what does that look like, and how do you?
I actually have a handout. You didn't even know you were teaming up for a handout.
Yeah.
So we'll just pass these around, and I'll tell you the story of our leader profile. But it's interesting. What James said is really unique. We in the 10 years Jeff Beard has been our superintendent, he has hired out of our 43 schools, I think 30 principals, I probably got that number, 30 or 34 principals have been hired in the last 10 years. And out of all the principals that were hired in the last 10 years, only one principal was hired from outside of our county. And he stayed here 2 years and left. And people might look at that and be like, God, what a closed circle. And it's not that we're closed, but leading in Forsyth County is super unique. Having been in Gwinnett, having, grown up in Pennsylvania and worked in Florida and so forth. Thank you. It's very unique to come here. And the reason it's unique to come here is that in all systems that you work in, everybody gives lip service to, we're all about relationships. When you come to Forsyth County, that's not lip service. The expectation of a principal is that you're running a public school, but you're providing private school service. And so the relationships with the parents, it's real easy to have discipline that's the old crime and punishment, and it's just black and white. And we look at discipline as behavior change, which means for the wayward young James, it may be, a little bit more stiff punishment, but for Steve, gosh, he's never been in trouble. And you know what? We don't have to give him the same punishment. We just want a behavior change. So that's one example of how we do discipline. All that entails relationships. And it's far more effective. It's not nearly as efficient, but it's far more effective when you approach everything case by case. We were talking earlier about out of district. You know, it's real easy when someone applies for an out of district waiver, they say, oh, you missed the deadline. But then when you hear the individual story, when you take that time to connect with the parent and hear the story, okay, we're going to waive the deadline here. Well, it's real easy to lose that as you get bigger, you know, and we're up to 55,000 students now, you know, 43 schools, 7,000 employees, the largest in the county. It's really easy to allow yourself to get caught up in being big and lose that small town feel. And that's a real, but it makes working here really difficult. If you come from a county like Gwinnett, where things are a little bit more black and white and you follow a manual, you're really managing. Over here, you're expected to lead, which is more challenging. So I'm actually getting your question.
No, that's right.
So one of the things that probably in these last 3 years of things I'm most proud of, this is probably one of the two things I'm most proud of, is you would get hired as a principal and you would have Joey Perkle would share with you as you went through the training program, the essence of leadership, and you talk to Candy Norton or Cindy Salome, and they would have their list of things that are important in leadership. Then you might get hired and Jeff Beard would tell you what was important. And while the core of those things were all the same, it was all over the place in the verbiage. So when I got the job as deputy, one of the projects I took on and asked Jeff if I could do this, and he blessed it, is to develop a leader profile. And we've got a student profile, learner profile it's called, which has guided our work for the last 18 years now. But I wanted us to develop a leader profile. So we brought together in focus groups all 40, at the time, 42 principals, all our district office leaders. So 76, 78, I think people in total have their fingerprints on this. And we went through some workshops about what they believed quality leadership was versus ineffective leadership. And we spent about an hour with each group and then came up with their list of leadership characteristics. Did that, I think, with 10 or 12 focus groups. And then at a table like this, I laid out all the responses to everything, and then we put it together, and it eventually became this document you have in front of you. And this spells out those 5 big things that we feel are essential to high quality leadership in Forsyth County schools. This may not apply to your business, it may not apply to your school system, but in Forsyth County, if you're a teacher who wants to be a leader and you go into our lead academy, if you're an assistant principal who wants to be a principal, you go into the Aspiring Principals Academy. If you're a head custodian or a transportation coordinator, you go through the Class A leadership program. And the guide for all this, the compass for all this is this document. And so we've been able to develop a coherent message around what we think is important as Forsyth County leaders. And we use this to identify leaders in our school, people that have some of these characteristics. We use it to evaluate, and we use it to develop, to find areas that, hey, you're really good here and you're good here, but we got some work to do in this category. So this has been an important guide for us to do these, to build our own pipeline of leaders, if you will. It's not that we don't take outsiders. We do, we have to. We continue to grow, so we have to attract talent from outside. But we love to bring folks in at the assistant principal level, or when you're in the county office, maybe at a coordinator or specialist level. But before you're in a title leadership role, you got to spend some time in Forsyth to get to know Forsyth, to get to know all the players, and really to get to know this. And then once you've been here, then bring those ideas you've got from other systems, but you're going to bring those ideas to life through our way of doing business.
So, culture, I mean, really,
Yep.
In an organization, especially like the school system, where you've got parents, you've got students, you've got an enormous number of employees, and swirling around all of that is all the stuff that we all see, going on, not just here, but around the country. What is your approach on looking at that culture to make sure that culture is really the right fit, that you've developed something with some staying power? Obviously, it's been developed, but that also doesn't mean that it doesn't change.
Right.
So how do you, what is your approach?
Yeah, well, I think three words probably encapsulate the answer to that question. Um, uh, Collaboration, innovation, and accountability, I think, are the three things that our culture is built around. And again, you can't have those without the relationships, effective communication, and intentionality. So all this plays into that. Those first three tenets of this are imperative. But when you think about just in your introductions today, how many folks in here have partnered with the schools or operate somewhere next to the schools, or at a minimum have had kids go through the schools? And I think it was darn near everybody in this room has had some connection to our schools. So the collaboration that we have with our community, with our business partnerships is second to none to any school system I've ever been around. And the pride that we have in that collaboration. You would normally see that growing up in small town Pennsylvania, where you have one school in every little town with its own little school board, and you didn't have county systems. I mean, it was very, very small operations in those little dairy farm towns that I grew up in. So there was that sense of pride. When you move to suburbia, you don't expect to see that. Again, it's something that makes Forsyth unique is even though we're a 43 school system, we've got this sense of collaboration with our community. The community takes as much pride in as the schools do. And so that collaboration, along with the fact that at the district level, we don't make each of our 43 schools march in lockstep. Now, there's certain things, the strategic plan that guides our whole school system, their school improvement plans have to align to that. Okay. And the learner profile, that's the North Star for each of our schools. But schools in Coal Mountain and schools down in Lambertville, those are very unique cultures compared to each other. And when you look around the county, I mean, we've got 8 communities within the community. So it's really important, and Jeff has done a masterful job of this, and I'm going to try to replicate that, is you have to give school principals the autonomy they need to meet the cultural needs of their community, while still aligning the work to the overall. So we don't want to be a system of 43 schools. We still want to be a school system. But the closest thing I can imagine is if there's any North Pointers in here, you've got the Andy Stanley North Point way of doing business, but they've got churches all over the country, all over the world now. There are certain things that have to be done the North Point way. Like we've got certain things that have to be done the Forsyth County Schools way. But there's autonomy given just like they give to their local churches to meet the needs of that community. And I think that's been kind of the genius to our county, going back to, Paula Galt was the first one I knew, but maybe back to Eileen McGill and then Paula. I mean, it really started with Eileen, I think, and then Paula, Buster, and then Jeff for these last 10 years. There's a constant tension between principals wanting more autonomy and district office leaders wanting them to have less autonomy. And it's sort of my job to go in there and to balance that so that we keep providing the collaboration. That autonomy provides a lot of innovation, right? And so my job comes in at the accountability level of all that. So you got all this collaboration, the autonomy along with that leads to innovation. Okay, but we've got to make sure this is held accountable to our strategic goals and your school improvement goals. And I hate that acronym that spells out CIA. I didn't realize that's but really it's those three things I think that have been part of the secret sauce. And you'll hear Jeff say all the time that the key to good schools are home, school, and the business community, and the collaboration of those three. And we've got that, and that one of the most important roles that I take on with this is making sure that I steward those relationships. Yeah.
So what, in thinking about, the system being collaborative in that way with that's a lot of constituencies and a lot of people. I've heard Jeff, by the way, say that 55,000 people, that's, if you go to an Atlanta Braves game, that's the stadium. That gives you some context.
Fill that stadium with K through 12 kids.
Right.
And that's our school
Yeah,
system.
that's
It's a great visual.
It really,
Yeah.
that number is hard to get your head wrapped around until you're standing at, the Brave Stadium. Oh, okay.
No doubt.
So in doing that, what are the important things from the school system's perspective about collaboration, especially since we're all business folks, especially with the business community. What do you want most from that collaboration, and what does that really, what's the most valuable part of that, or the top three?
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, I think, I mean, don't get me wrong, we're always grateful to have partners, particularly when you're at the high school level and you need to have, facilities that aren't covered by the school, or trips for your, booster clubs reach out for money, right? I mean, and when you're doing special things as a PTA at elementary school, there's a lot of reach out for money. But those things, I mean, the transactional piece is important, but the deeper things are the partnerships, the mentor me partnerships. When we have mock interviews and people give up their time from their business to come and interview these kids that we're getting ready to send into the world. I think about the partnerships with like Alliance Academy and Automation Direct with our robotics programs, and Siemens has come into that space, with our kids. When you think about as a principal at Central, well, we had the STEM Academy and great partnerships with like Northside Hospital for Sight. That was important, but just as important was our partnerships with the car dealers. As we were sending them from our automotive program, technicians were leaving there making more than their teachers right out of the gate. And so I think those partnerships, again, always helpful for the money, but those deep partnerships are made when you invest your time in the school, when you open your doors to bring in kids and teachers in for them to get an inside look at what goes on in your company. I think that's the real spirit of collaboration that I'm referring to.
Very good. So when you look ahead at the next 3 to 5 years in the school system, what are you expecting the biggest challenges?
Yeah, I think there's a slide for that. Is she still working the slide?
She is, right? Or you can.
Yeah, I think I put a slide up there. So I went, so slide number 14. It's like I'm on a radio show. Slide number 14. We're getting there. It's right after. There we go. Right there. So I talk all the time. I'm in the middle of my dissertation right now. I'm working on my doctorate, and in one section there, I stole a term from. Oh, where'd we go? Oh, can you go back? Yeah, go back one. All right, stole a term in there called VUCA. Yeah, right there. Perfect. So VUCA, the world we're living in right now. Now, you might say, if you've been around for a long time, you maybe say, well, this is always the case. But when you think about current times, especially in public education, from the pandemic to the culture wars to the battles over books and DEI and postmodern Marxism and what do we do? And all those things. None of that's in principal school or superintendent school. Like they don't. Those are all things that you had better have learning agility to be able to learn and adapt, right? So the vulnerable, unpredictable, complex, ambiguous things coming in. People ask all the time, "What are you most scared of being superintendent?" And it's the things that we've never been through, that we don't. Like nobody prepared Jeff Bearden for a pandemic. Nobody prepared any of us for that. And so that is probably the signature piece of VUCA is. What do you do when a pandemic hits? So if you can go to the next slide. So what I see coming at us doesn't scare me nearly as much as the things that we can't see. But these are the things that we know are going to us. We are so good at the work we're doing with our English language learners and our special education students that it brings in more and more customers, if you will. So we have such rising needs there. And the labor shortage around special education, the labor shortage around English language learners, we're fortunate that we're still able to attract a lot of the best from around the state, around the city. But those rising numbers pose a real challenge. The after effects of the post-pandemic, there's the issues of the learning loss, but most of that is less about learning loss, because I feel like we did a great job with our online opportunities, our hybrid opportunities, all the different options parents had. Where we're seeing the after effects is in behavior. And if I'm being really honest, it ain't just the kid behavior. All right. And that might not be so much as post-pandemic, although there's an element of that. But you've also got, this is a generation of kids whose parents have been on cell phones and on social media for much of their, youth and adult life. And so you've got the screen factor, if you will. And so you've got that with this generational change in parenting. You got being locked up in the homes during the pandemic. So we're seeing a lot of behavior that we've experienced, but behaviors at high school we're seeing are usually what you would experience at middle school. You know, behaviors at middle school are a lot of elementary school type social behaviors. So we're all trying to, and this is not just in Forsyth County, this is a problem across America, but we're all trying to wrap our heads around it. We know that in this next election, if the taxpayers go and vote for the cap on the homestead exemption, the reassessment cap, that's gonna challenge us a little bit in terms of you know, our finances, but it was something that we're prepared for. We've worked closely, you know, with Carter and our delegation when that was being put together. Great back and forth and in collaboration on that. But we know we're gonna have to be budget hawks, which was the whole point of that. And you know, I welcome that. Our two main jobs are making sure your kids are safe and educated in stewarding your tax dollars. And with, you know, those are the two things people are also most wildly passionate about, as they should be. So we're not 100% sure. We've got different models and projections we've run, but we're not exactly sure how that's going to hit. And we're just going to have to be flexible when that does come and figure that out. I've talked about the fourth bullet point several times. The fifth one, trepidations of artificial intelligence. And I think that was one of the questions that someone had posed in there. But there is so much positive to be gained from utilization of AI. And an example today is we've got an opening at the county office that just emerged. And it's been so long, the person's been there so long, we can't find a job description that was used 23, 24 years ago. So several folks put their minds together and came up with a good one. And our associate superintendent over human resources said, I'm just going to throw this in the chat GPT and just see what it comes up with. And oh my God, there was a lot of things in there that were phenomenal, that were very helpful. One, to cross-check what we come up with, and 2, 3, 4 things that we hadn't thought about that are great. So there's a lot of positive use out of AI. And I think we use it all the time and don't even realize it. The flip side of that is the classroom abuse of AI, which is where, you know, our kids writing their term papers anymore. Are they doing any of their own research? Are they doing any of that? Well, it's the same arguments that were made when we went from paper pencil and started to allow kids to use calculators. This is a new wild version of that. But at the end of the day, what math teachers realized is they needed to tell kids, okay, that's how you get the answer. Show me your work. And I think for English social studies teachers that are worried that the kids are just having this written up at home, okay, you're going to write this essay in class. And you're going to have to go old school, and you're going to have to actually write it. Now, the problem there is most kids know how to type, that they've forgotten how to write. So we got a little back work to do there. But, you know, so there are some things that we'll do. But there's also things when you give kids research. I mean, this is going to be a tool available to them. I think my biggest trepidation over AI, and I don't want to fuel any paranoia into the culture wars, but I don't know who's doing the input for all this. So I don't know what the biases are in the stuff that it spews out. And I think that's probably the next culture war battlefield is, you know, you're getting things generated on AI. And is that coming from the far left or the far right, or the Soviet Union? Well, we don't call it that anymore. Russia, is it, you know, where is it coming from? And I think that's yet to be sorted out. But I think if we go into this and just saying, oh my God, we're a system that just, you know, AI is not allowed in our system, well, we're missing out on opportunities and the benefits. So I think we just got to have a balanced approach to that. And in the Forsyth County housing market, I mean, right now, it is hard for a teacher in their first few years of service to find a place to live in our county.
So you're going to build dorms?
So we've talked about a lot of things. I don't think that's happening, but I don't know. These are things I don't totally have the answer to. But I think in collaboration with our community members, we will find some innovative approaches to these things. So, yeah, yes, sir.
Recruitment of teachers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information that there are less students looking at teaching as a career because
Yeah.
the salary level isn't as attractive as
Yeah.
getting an accountant
Yeah.
degree. Do you see a challenge yet with recruiting teachers?
So we do. I mean, when we've had job fairs for years that we would have in excess of 1,000 folks show up, and in the last couple of years, I think that number's been down to the fours and 500s. So that's a real metric right there that shows you that. We're still able to attract high quality teachers. We're very blessed in that regard. But to do that, to recruit and retain, and this is where I don't want to go too deep in that in the middle of a budget, trying to get this budget established for our system. And I'm sure some of you have received your tax reassessments and your property tax reassessments. And so that's always a challenging needle to thread. But if we want to keep high quality teachers here, I mean, we don't have to pay them more than Gwinnett and more than Fulton, but we got to be in striking distance. And as Cobb County, who is, booming in their commercial revenues, they're setting the bar so high, and that's who Gwinnett and Fulton really compete with salary wise. And then we compete with Fulton and Gwinnett to steal their teachers. And so Cobb has jacked it up on us. And then Fulton and Gwinnett have tried to keep up with the Joneses in that regard. And again, we're not trying to necessarily surpass them, but we got to be in striking distance. And we've got to pay at the same height or better than a Cherokee County or Dawson County, so that we're not having them come in one side and leave out the backside. So that balancing act of finding what is the, what's the level that we've got to be able to pay them, which means then we've got to be able to collect from your property taxes to make that happen in conjunction with what we get from the state. It's a balancing act. But the other part of that then in this shortage is growing our own. And we've partnered with UNG, and every high school now has a teachers as a profession pathway. And UNG has this great program. You go through a pathway like that, and you go to UNG for teaching. At UNG, you can actually, in your junior year, you can go back to one of our schools. We bring you in as a student teacher, and in our partnership, we can pay you as a paraprofessional, and you're getting your student teaching in and getting paid for it while you're doing it. And of course, after you've been with us for 2 years, you're not going to want to go anywhere else. That's what we're banking on. And I think we piloted that, I think, with 23 teachers, 23 teachers last year, and actually hired 19 of the 23.
Awesome.
So those are some of the things we're having to get out of the box with on that
So
too.
my last question.
No,
Sorry.
no.
When you look at the number of teachers that are retired, we used to do it at UPS, the people retiring, you started looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
To figure out where you were going.
Yeah.
Hiring. Do you see a large number retiring in the next?
Do we see a what?
Retiring teachers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, so one of the things in this year's budget that we've proposed to try to retain those at the front, what you'll have happen quite often is some of your veteran teachers, who are the ones you want to keep them in there till the end. Teachers can retire and get their full benefits after 30 years. And the retirement is based on their highest 2 years of pay.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes what you'll have is teachers will leave. Our salary schedule maxes out at 25 years. And so what we've seen happen is teachers leave after year 25. They'll jump across county lines to go where they have a step 26, 27, 28, where they can collect more money and bump up their retirement. Well, we can't afford to lose those veteran teachers. So one of the things in this year's budget proposal is to add an additional year at the end of that. And I think that would positively impact 571 teachers who are on the edge of retirement. And so our hope is, depending on how all these, all these figures look in future years, we'd like to try to continue to add the back end of our salary schedule each year until we get it to 30. So,
Question that went with what Jerry just asked. I listened to a podcast yesterday about teachers leaving early and across the country. And I wondered if we were seeing that they said it's got a lot to do with the mental health of children and parents.
Yeah.
But just what teachers are dealing with, that they are not equipped. So my question is, how do we better equip at the UNG and everywhere else that teachers are ready for that situation?
Right.
Since we're in this environment we're in.
yeah, then there's a couple of things, Cindy, at play in that. I mean, one is certainly they get into teaching and they're like, oh my gosh, because it is hard work. it is really hard work to be an effective teacher. And then when you throw those other behaviors in there, that makes it equally challenging. Programs like what we've got with UNG, where they're in here and they're doing that for a couple of years, and they're not only getting the support we would give normal first-year teachers, but then you're also getting the UNG support. That additional support is why we were able to retain 19 of 23 of those. So doing more things like that is super important. The second element at play in that is this generation of students. You've got the millennials, which there's some millennials in this room, and then post millennials, where for us Xers and and above that, baby boomers, whatever, a good resume to us would look like 10 years at the same company at the same job, right? That looks like good to. In this new generation of hiring, what is wrong with you? You were there for 10 years. You weren't good enough to go anywhere else. And so and so you think about, you really invest in teachers for 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden that teacher decided they want to be an accountant, they want to be a nurse, or they want to just go explore the world for a couple of years, and like that would have been a burnt bridge back when I was breaking in. Well, we've had to recalibrate and say, listen, don't burn bridges with those teachers. They'll come back. Get them in there, let them go explore, do everything else. And then if they're really meant to be the kind of teacher we want them to have, they'll come back to us. And then, when they come back, then you sit them down in front and show the Dave Ramsey video. And I don't know if anybody's seen the Dave Ramsey study that's out, but the 5 professions that most lead to millionaires, all right? Engineers, accountants, number 3 on the list, teachers. And then after that, you get it says business professionals, which is a catch-all.
Trial lawyers.
And lawyers. No, lawyers was number 5 on the list. Lawyers was number 5 on the list. And everybody sort of expected doctors, but
Yeah.
doctors end up more like artists that they're.
No, they're terrible business.
Apparently they're terrible with their money.
They are.
So, and the theory behind that is teachers, like lawyers, like accountants, like engineers, are very process oriented. And once you get them in there and their process of lesson planning and all that, once you get them in there, once they get their head wrapped around how money works and they're process oriented, they understand the benefits of the pension, and they learn how to supplement that with a 403B that you have access to as a teacher, whatever. And they put their 30 years in. If you stick with it, 30 years, if you started at 22, by 52, you've got a retirement that is, that is substantial. And again, I point to Carter on this, but Carter and his friends down at the Capitol, if I were to lobby him on anything, it's making sure that we continue to make the teacher retirement system, TRS, as strong as it is. And our old friend Buster is over TRS. And we have, I think, hands down by every metric, the most solid, well-managed teacher retirement system in the country. And, you can't let those guys rob from that down there, Carter. You got to keep that baby, keep that baby for our teachers. But that's how we got to keep them.
I love what you said about giving them another year to keep them money wise, but I do think that, and I know each school is doing different things,
Yeah.
but teachers need support.
They do.
I mean,
Yep.
they need support in a big, big way. I mean, when you hear stories of teachers
Yeah.
in elementary school having their shoulders dislocated by student.
Yep.
I mean, or having concussions from students. That they're not equipped, a lot of them, to know how to handle.
Right. Yeah. And the training, the investment in the training's got to continue to happen. Yep.
Just as a bit of an aside, so Jesse Martin, who is running the show for us in that other room, just messaged me on our messaging app. Her husband is a teacher. She was very glad to hear that he'll be a millionaire.
Only if he sticks to his process. That's not a problem. It's kind of like the, life, liberty, and people forget it's the pursuit of happiness. Gotta guarantee it.
It's no guarantee. It's the pursuit of
Yeah.
it. Right. So let's kind of switch gears and go maybe a little more micro. I mean, all this has been great, but there's also some folks that submitted questions ahead of time that have, and this is probably as meat and potatoes as you get when it comes to being in a leadership role.
Before you ask it, I just want you to know, I'm not superintendent until July 1. So any questions that I don't want to answer, I'm just going to say, we'll have to call Jeff Beard. disclaimer up front. So we'll see. See how much meat and potato we get into.
So how do you organize your time? I mean, with
Oh,
all the,
yeah.
how do you prioritize? How do you make decisions about how your day is going to?
And honestly, I did see that question on there. I don't know if anybody here asked that, but I would just look at and say, I don't know yet. I have an idea.
Yeah.
And it's all, when I went from being a teacher to an AP, I thought I knew, I've been around APs. I thought I knew what the job was. And then you get there and you're like, oh, and as an assistant principal or an AP, you think you know the job of the principal, you get in there and it's like, okay. So I like intellectually, I know as prepared as I feel for this job as superintendent, I don't know what I don't know. And that's one of the things that my assistant and I are talking about, the new cabinet or the cabinet that I'm inheriting, and we'll have some new members on that. Yeah, we're gonna meet probably a little bit differently. So how I'm putting that all together, that would be a great follow-up question after I've been on the job for a year.
Yeah.
Because I'm still figuring that out. I do know this, and this comes from my time as a principal and then as a deputy superintendent, that if I don't put it on my calendar, it won't get done. So the calendar is my absolute, like, it's sort of like, well, nobody uses a checkbook anymore, but the old saying that you can tell me what you value all day, let me look at your checkbook and I'll tell you what you value. That is true of time and leadership. I think whatever you see on the calendar, when you add that up, that's where your value is. And so managing that calendar, but setting up my day or week, and it's not that I haven't thought about it. I've thought about it, and then I watched Jeff a little bit more closely, and I'm like, oh, that ain't gonna work. And then I'll think about it again, and then I'll get a call from a board member and be like, yeah, that ain't gonna work. So I'll figure it out. I'm just not ready to answer it yet. Yeah.
So along those same sort of like just mechanical
Yeah.
lines, and this is probably something that you have had probably more experience in that end, but that is resolving conflict.
Yeah.
And you know, looking also ahead. I mean, in addition to employees and parents and
Yep.
all that, then you've got a board of education. My guess is they don't all see eye to eye every single
No.
time.
No.
Or at least I hope they don't. But what is your approach to that? How do you take on trying to resolve conflict so that you can push through that to a better outcome?
Yeah. So, and I make it sound simple. Obviously, it's not simple, but you know, a lot of times, I would say in dealing with angry parents, sometimes angry taxpayers, you know, whatever the particular issue is more often than not in situations like that, if you can just give them an audience and allow them and really actively listen and take notes and hear what it is they're saying and empathize with it and really try to put yourself in their spot, you may not be able to fix it the way they want it fixed. But if you can truly listen to them and give them that audience and the benefit of active listening, sometimes that in itself helps diffuse it. At a minimum, it helps diffuse the emotional part and get you to where you can talk about the logical part. And so on the logical part, I don't know if I have a slide on this or not, James, but I'll just show you what my process is if we did. Can you go to slide number 9? It's right after the gears and levers that are in there. But bottom line is whether you're dealing with parents or board members, let me back up. I think everything really starts with having clear expectations up front. And it's not that I'm a member of the governance team. All right. So like when you think of the Board of Ed, certainly I answer to them, but it's almost like a player coach on a team. Like I've got the inside knowledge that they need to be able to make the decisions that they make. So it's you know, the coach of the team, maybe point guard or quarterback of the team, that sort of thing. But we're all in it together. And sometimes passions, political realities, agenda, a lot of different things can come into play. Same is true when you're dealing with parents. Same is true when you're dealing with 2 teachers who are upset. And getting everybody to get the emotion off their chest or out, let off that steam, and then say, okay, now where are we really right now, and where is it are we trying to go? And so like this is our continuous improvement planning, but this is also sort of the wheel that I use for conflict resolution, which is what is it we're trying to accomplish? And so if you're talking to warring board members, it's putting the strategic plan down in front of them and be like, okay, here's our belief statements, here's our goal statements and strategic plan. This is what the community has charged our governance team with accomplishing. So as we look at this plan, where in there does your argument? If it doesn't align or connect to that at all, then take that stuff, take it out back and hash it out. But if it does have to do with that, then let's talk through this. Yeah, I mean, certainly you can have two people wanting to get to the same destination, but from different avenues. But if you can keep the destination as the focus, then that again brings the emotion down to have a more logical conversation. And so, okay, so if this is where we want to go, what are some measures that we're on the right track? Let's make sure we check in as we're going along here. But if this is where we agree that is our destination, these are some measures. Okay, if we can agree on those two things, now let's collaborate on the plan to get there, and let's do that. And I know that sounds simplistic. And then of course, once you get there, the accountability kicks in, which is okay. Well, where are we now? How do we do and what we said our goal was? But you'll notice the biggest part of that is the center part, which is the who are we, and that's the core value piece. And so whether it's a board or an admin team at a school or parents, you have to know as the leader what your core values are. What are your non-negotiables? What are the hills you're willing to die on? There's not a lot of hills you should be willing to die on. Most everything should be negotiable and it should be able to be talked through. The core value things are to me when it comes to leading and developing our leaders, those are things like that. You should not tolerate somebody speaking disrespectfully to somebody else or going after somebody's integrity, and things of that nature. So, so if you can keep those at the center and you start everybody off with okay, what are we trying to accomplish? Most of the battles are that people can't agree where they want to go. But once you get that clutter removed and you can land on where you want to go, all right, well, then there's a lot of ways to get there. So I don't know if that ansed the question or not, but that's what my
Where are
approach
you
is.
gonna be at 2:00?
I was thinking the same thing, Cindy.
Yeah,
Mitch,
easier said than done. Yes, sir.
you mentioned that a lot of times the hardest thing is knowing where you want to go.
Yeah.
And I can't, and that's such an important statement because especially when it comes to kids and students.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked about AI and the challenges with AI, but specifically around learning and things like
Sure.
that. But I would posit that how do we become relevant? How do we stay relevant in a changing economy?
Yeah.
With dramatic inflation and AI is going to change everything.
Yeah.
I think people aren't aware of how severe and dramatic it's really going to be
Yeah.
on the individual and how he's going to be relevant
Yeah.
to living. Career pathways.
Yep.
How do we do in Forsyth County? Is this standard fare? We've got, I think, 53 career pathways, give or take.
Yep. No, you're exactly right.
Is everyone
And-
doing it?
And we'll continue to do it. And so what's unique about our school, and thanks for teeing that up for me, Carter. Well done, partner. But one of the things that's unique, and again, a generation ago, if you wanted to get a career tech pathway, you would probably go to a VOTEC school. And in each of our traditional high schools, we have a smorgasbord of career pathways. And an interesting fact is every student of ours, and this doesn't mean kids are taking AP classes, or in the gifted program, whatever. I'm talking about in every sort of pathway, those kids that start and finish a pathway, which most of them are a 3-year pathway, our graduation rate is just a hair short of 100%. It was like 98.8% 2 years ago. We don't have this year's numbers. So kids that complete a pathway graduate at almost a mark of 100%. When you look at the Alliance Academy for Innovation, which is a high tech or a high needs career pathway school, their graduation rate's 100% and is just almost every year. But at each of our traditional schools, there's a smorgasbord of pathways that are getting kids absolute job ready, and in some cases even certified, depending what the program is, so that they can leave here and make money right out of school and follow that path. Sometimes taking a pathway is a way for you to realize what I thought I might want to do this, and now I don't want to do it, which is great too. So you don't go spend mom and dad's money at school for the next 2 years or 4 years and realize you don't want to do that. So the pathways, to me, that's when you look at our learner profile and all the things that we want to do to prepare kids, our community, rightfully so, puts a high premium on college and university acceptance. I think the more important question is what goes on after that. And that's harder data to collect. We had a whole talk about this yesterday, actually, at the Forward for Sight meeting, is how can we start collecting data on what our kids are doing after they leave us 2 years out, 4 years out, and so forth. And because if you've interacted with any of those kids in the career pathways through the mock interviews, most people come away blown away at how prepared they are for society because they're learning the soft skills, everything else. So expanding that, continue to expand pathways. At some point, finding another facility to be able to do some more pathways that require the equipment that you just can't house at a traditional school. But those absolutely set us apart from the other school systems and again, the key to that goes back to that CIA piece that I'm talking about. The reason we're so effective in our career pathways is because of our business partnerships with our community. That we've got people willing to give of their time and to bring kids into their company for internships and teacher externships and so forth. Yes, Frank.
I will tell you, I did those interviews, I've done them for a few years.
Yeah.
Two of the kids, and I've done interviews with UPS, I was with UPS when they blew me away.
Yeah.
Two of them, I won't talk about now because they're individual, but I'll fill you in later.
Yeah.
They blew me away.
Yeah.
I was shocked at how smooth, they were young, they were
Yeah.
juniors,
Yeah.
they weren't even seniors.
Yep. Well, you've got an intern coming in to mentor me right now
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
that'll blow you away. Yeah, for sure. Yep. I don't know. Did I get to your?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and to add to that, from out the chamber perspective, having folks like Dr. Valerie Lowe, who just is a nationally recognized leader of CTAE and development of that. It's a little more niche, but FOCO works and the partnership that we have with Forsyth County Schools to help. We heard just yesterday at that same meeting, I did not know that until a school board member shared that a program that we worked on closely with Valerie in the school system called Launch, which takes kids that they don't have immediate plans after they graduate. One of the school board members shared that their child had gone through it and they were hired at just immediately after the career fair that we hosted at the end. And so there's some remarkable success stories.
We really are blessed. We've got Valerie Lowe, who is unbelievable in all the things that you just said, and her role is about to expand, but I won't get into that because I don't want to get ahead of our board or anybody, but her role is going to expand. And then her other half, the other doctor, we got Hilo and Shilo. So Shilo is the one you're referring to, but Hilo was my right arm in those years at Central. A big reason why we had the success that we had there. He was actually there a year before I got there as an AP, and then stayed with me for my 7 years, and then followed me when I left Central and continued to take Central to great heights. And he's now serving as my chief of staff at the county office. So that is a powerful, dynamic duo. The Lowe family that we're blessed to have. And you're right, that the work she does is renowned really throughout the nation. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So we're down to just the last few minutes, so I'll open it up. Anybody have any questions you wanna?
Haven't talked about this. I love sports. I think in the South, we like sports. I think when you look at, a school system, you're attracting teachers, you're attracting families, and it's more than just academia. I think you've got athletics, and I think that makes a huge difference in keeping people in the community and recruiting. I think you talk about pathway transfers. I know that's going on. But I'm curious, what gets people excited in terms of athletics? What does that program look like across the school system?
Yeah, and again, that is going to be school to school. I mean, that goes along to each school having its own unique identity. And the students that go there. I mean, at the end of the day, great sports teams. Yes, you've got to have great coaches, but you got to have some athletes in there too. And athletes come in all shapes and sizes and cultures and so forth. The years at Central that we were there, the soccer program really became one of the, one of the great, more competitive programs in the county, our baseball program when we were there. While I was at Lambert, the time down there, I think in my 3 years there, I think won 10 or 11 state championships. And all those championships in lacrosse, soccer, tennis, golf, and comp cheer. And if you kind of do a demographic study, that lines up, pretty good. Then you look at, the two areas that we haven't dominated in yet have been football and basketball, and that will continue to grow, over time. But yeah, each school sort of has its own, specialty, if you will. And it's part of what makes us unique. But you're right, people rally around the extracurriculars.
Yeah.
The high school level. A lot of folks, there's this myth out there that parents are really involved in elementary and middle school, and parents aren't involved at all high school. And that's because you see high school PTAs have very small numbers, but that's because it becomes specialized at high school. If you add up all the parents who are in booster club and band moms and cheer dads and all that, it's actually exponentially larger and more hands-on involvement than what you have in elementary. So we're blessed by that. And again, having worked in school systems where you would beg parents to be involved, this is a godsend. You got to work and operate here. Great question.
Which I have worked with Todd Shirley in school safety. And I've worked, and with him, we developed a product for South County schools that other schools around the nation became aware of.
Yep.
And so I created a company that went around the nation hawking this
Yeah.
product. And I learned about how different school systems do school safety. And
Yeah.
we're fairly unique there. Can you just talk, I mean, like I've seen behind the curtain,
Well,
they've got a command center that is fairly impressive.
yeah, I mean, when you get to, and that's something else, God willing, this budget passes, we're gonna be moving them, if that works, into a larger facility. We've got a state-of-the-art command center. At the end of the day, you do everything you can to prevent the unthinkable. And even with all that, and I know you guys have read the news, I mean, you've got craziness that still happens, but you do everything you can at the prevention side, and then you've got to have a great relationship with law enforcement and first responders on the other side. Well, and we talked about this, Steve talked about this in the beginning. Our partnership with our sheriff's department is unlike anything in the nation. I mean, it is, the synergy there is unbelievable. And we've got SROs in every school. And if you have something at a school, the response time is overwhelming. I mean, to the point where sometimes the response is so good that it creates a new alarm, because parents could drive by the school and it's like, oh my God, what are all the cars doing there? But it's unbelievable. You've got a program that our safety and security department created on their own. Steve Hahn, who used to work for the sheriff's department, is now our director of school safety. And what a gem, this guy. I mean, he's incredible. But he and Todd Shirley, who's over that department, developed a program called Student Advocacy Specialist. And so every school has their counselors, and you got your school psychologist. But when you have a student, K through 12, that has any suicidal or homicidal ideation, no matter what level it's at, and of course everything's leveled and flagged at different levels. A student advocacy specialist is assigned to that student. They're not formal counselors. They haven't necessarily been educators. We've got folks that have been educators. We've got folks who are coming from law enforcement. This group of 8 folks is the most unique, eclectic group of folks that just love kids. And so when you've got a student that's had any sort of those ideations, they go on one of these SAS's list. And that SAS begins to meet with them almost like a mentor, almost like a friend, but just an adult who's there non-judgmentally, has none of the boxes they have to check like a school counselor or school psychologist. They're just there to be there, and then they'll track them through their entire career. And the numbers of lives that parent testimonials that come in have been saved as a result of these SASs. And when I say numbers of lives, not only the individual student's personal life, but the damage that they may have wanted to do to others. We'll never know how many lives have been saved by this initiative, this innovation that came out of our safety department that now all throughout the state, others are trying to do. And we're hoping at some point, I know we've had meetings with Governor Kemp, but we're hoping at some point that would be something that the state would maybe look into funding and providing And we have systems come in all the time to learn more about that program, but I'm glad you brought that up. That's an incredible, and again, that comes from collaboration and innovation and then holding yourselves accountable to what you say your goals are. So
And they don't just take on the student, they take on the whole thing.
they take on the whole family. You're exactly right, Cindy. Yep. Yep.
All right, one last, got time for one last? Thank you.
Nothing, honey?